All right, good day, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about kind of the next step in our process, and that's going to be trying to factor out and solve by completing the square. Okay. Yesterday we talked about how to solve using square root models, right? Where we had to simplify, basically get that parentheses squared by itself or just the x squared by itself, take the square root to the other side, and the next thing you know, we have our two separate answers. Okay. Well, with those particular problems, we kind of had a nice setup problem, right? Problems were given to us similar to what's in this example down here. Okay. For example, problems were given to us similar to this, right? Well, unfortunately, as you probably have seen in the past, that's not always how we're given an equation. Typically, in a quadratic looks like this. Okay. So what we want to be able to do is distinguish certain ways to actually build this information and say, okay, if I'm given this type of situation, how can I turn it into this? Okay. Well, here's one of the main things we're going to do. All right. I'm going to talk about completing the square, how it works. We're going to go through an example of it, but then I'm actually going to show you a nice formula you can use to actually work this out. Okay. So we're going to use this example called completing the square. All right. The idea of completing the square is that we're going to use this to basically help us out and factor things that in most cases aren't factorable. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some nice examples here, but no, the completing the square is really used to factor what is unfactorable. Okay. So the first thing you have to understand is that this equation is written out like this. We have a of x squared plus b of x plus c. Okay. And all three of those values come from the equation itself. Okay. So for example, what we're going to do is call this A, B, and C. We're not worried about the values that are with it. We're only worried about the numbers. A is 1, B is 2, C is negative 15. Okay? Now, from this point, what we're going to do is actually move things around. Okay? We want to try to just get the x squared plus 2x by itself. So we're going to add the 15 over to get x squared plus 2x equals 15. Our next step is going to be taking this middle piece, whatever it is. We have a 2 here. We're going to go off to the side. I call it side math. We're going to take 2 divided by 2, which equals 1. And then we're going to square that 1. This would give us x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, we're going to plug it right in there for that missing value. And then we're also going to plug it in on the other side. 15 plus 1. We continue working this out. At this point, we basically have a value that is factorable. Okay, we have this value that is factorable with an answer on the other side. If I were to factor out x squared plus 2x plus 1, I could split that up into x plus 1 squared. Okay, that factors out to x plus 1 squared. This comes out to be 16. And then from there, we can solve it out by simply doing what we did yesterday. Okay, we take the square root of the other side. That would give us x plus 1 equals positive negative 4. And then we just split this up into two parts. X plus 1 equals 4. So we have the positive answer. That would give us x plus 1 equals positive 4. If we subtract the 1, we get x equals 3 as an answer. And then over here, we do our second version. This comes out to be x plus 1 equals negative 4. If I subtract the 1, that gives me x equals negative 5. We get our two answers. Okay? Now, that's kind of the completing the square process. All right? To quickly go through a lot of different things. All right, notice how to start this problem. I took the middle value, I divided it by 2, and whatever answer I got, I plugged into that value. Okay? But the thing we have to realize, everything we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Okay, so there is a process to completing the square. A lot of it's just trying to get it set up, and after this point, down here in red, it's just going to be factoring and working it out. Now, here's kind of the key thing for you. Okay, I just wanted to go quickly through that because that's just an example. What we're going to teach, just for you to kind of helpfully remember it, and especially with remote learning, is we have a little formula for you that you're going to use to help complete the square. It goes like this. Okay, we're going to take x plus b over 2 squared equals negative c plus b over 2 squared. Sorry about that. B over 2 squared. Okay? Now, this is our actual equation that we can use to help solve out all these problems. Okay? Because if you really think about it, this step here is really where we get to right here. So it's nice because I can skip all this early work and kind of jump right to this answer. Okay? So let's go ahead and try it. Think of it like this. This is our equation right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and list out my A, B, and C. A equals 1. B equals negative 2. C equals negative 65. Okay? Now, watch how we can use this equation to our advantage. All right? After I fix this A so it doesn't look like an 11. The equation, let's start with the first part. We have x plus b over 2 squared. So we're going to literally write that. X plus b is negative 2. That would be negative 2 divided by 2 squared. And that's the whole thing being squared like this. That's going to be equal to positive 65. Because remember, if we plug a negative into an already negative c, it's going to become positive. So we have positive 65. Okay, once again, if you look at this side of the equation, we have negative c plus b over 2 squared. Well, if I plug negative 65 into an already negative c, it's going to become positive. Plus negative 2 over 2 squared. Okay? Now, at this point, all we have to do is simplify and solve. Negative 2 divided by 2 is going to be x minus 1 squared equals, this would be negative 1 squared, which would become positive 1. So if I simplify that, and you can use a calculator with that too, I end up getting 66. From there, we're going to go ahead and simplify these values. We're going to square root the 66. X minus 1 equals the square root of 66. And that's going to be positive and negative. And then last but not least, we're going to add the 1 over to get to our final answer of x equals positive negative square root of 66 plus 1. Now, notice how I left it in that square root form. Truthfully, you could simplify that, but honestly, it would just become a decimal anyway. So if you leave it in that form, it's perfectly fine. Okay? But that's kind of the process we got going on. That's completing the square for us. We're going to work from the top all the way to the bottom using these values. Besides that, that's all I got for you for today. Have a great day. Make sure you watch the video. If you have any questions, we'll come into class. Okay, remember, we're going to be using this formula tomorrow in class. Okay? I'll see you tomorrow.